What Japanese forces did in Nanking over 6 weeks in late 1937 was systematic terror transformed into military doctrine. Officers didn't just allow atrocities. They organized them. Soldiers formed lines. Multiple officers photographed the events, developed the film, and kept the pictures in personal collections. We know this because Allied forces found those photographs after Japan's surrender in 1945. Those images were presented as evidence at the International Military Tribunal for the Far East. The numbers are staggering. Between 20,000 and 80,000 women violated, ranging in age from 6 to 80 years old. But here's the detail that reveals this was strategy rather than chaos. After the violations, soldiers would bayonet victims in public streets and leave the bodies on display, not hidden in alleys, but in major thoroughfares where crowds would be forced to see them. German businessman John Robb lived in Nanking during the occupation and kept a diary that has since been published. On December 17, 1937, he wrote that the horror in the city was indescribable, with bodies piling in streets as public warnings while women screamed through the night. He used a specific word, systematic, but here's what shatters the comfortable narrative. This wasn't unique to Japanese military culture. The Allied powers put Japanese officers on trial for these crimes. American prosecutors called them inhumane and barbaric. President Truman himself condemned the atrocities. The Nuremberg Principles were established partially in response to Nanking. And then in 1945, as Allied forces liberated Europe, they deployed the exact same weapon. British historian Anthony Beevor spent years in Soviet military archives that opened the Cold War. What he documented in his book, The Fall of Berlin 1945, should fundamentally change how we understand World War II. Soviet forces assaulted an estimated 2 million German women during the occupation of Berlin and Eastern Germany. We know these numbers because Soviet military hospitals documented them. Berlin hospital records from 1945 to 1946 show over 100,000 abortion procedures performed in a single city in 12 months. Allied Supreme Command knew. Staff at Eisenhower's headquarters documented complaints from German civilians, Red Cross workers, even Soviet officers, disturbed by what they witnessed. The reports reached the highest levels of Allied command. The response was silence. No orders issued, no discipline enforced, no investigations launched. If you're still watching, you're someone who wants to understand brutal truths that official histories try to bury. Make sure you're subscribed because real history ain't clean good guys versus bad guys. It's complicated and dark and necessary to understand. Next week I am revealing how modern military strategists still discuss these tactics in classified doctrine using terms like psychological operations and morale degradation. But you'll recognize the methods. Meanwhile, in Western Europe, another form of public violation unfolded. Women accused of fraternizing with German occupiers were dragged into town squares by their own neighbors. Their heads were shaved. Their clothes were torn. They were paraded through streets while crowds spat on them. These weren't soldiers. These were regular civilians, mothers and shopkeepers and teachers participating in ritualized public humiliation. The message remained identical to Rome, to Nanking, to Berlin. Women's bodies are territorial markers. Violating them declares ownership. Fast forward to the 1990s. In 1998, the International Criminal Tribunal convicted Jean-Paul Akeyu, a Rwandan official, of genocide, not for killing but for rape. It was the first time in human history an international court ruled that systematic sexual violence can constitute genocide. The testimony revealed that during the 1994 Rwanda genocide, Hutu extremists organized these attacks with soldiers calling it breaking the will to resist. Between 250,000 and 500,000 women were violated over 100 days. The children born from these assaults were given a specific name, children of hate. At the exact same time in Bosnia, Serbian forces established rape camps with fences, guards, and schedules. These camps had one explicit purpose: systematic impregnation of Muslim women. The military logic was force pregnancy to make it biologically impossible to hide what happened and make the children living reminders that would destroy Muslim family structures. Rome's playbook with GPS coordinates. Do you see the pattern now? Across 20 centuries, every army, every nation, every alliance has at some point deployed this weapon. The technology changed, the documentation became clearer, but the tactic remained identical. The AKU conviction finally established that systematic sexual violence is a weapon of war under international law. But the World Health Organization estimates that in 2023 alone, over 250,000 women in active conflict zones experienced systematic sexual violence. Ukraine reported it. Sudan reported it. Ethiopia reported it. Myanmar reported it. Same weapon. Same logic. Same goal. For more than 2,000 years, armies have used women's bodies as weapons of psychological warfare because it works. Public sexual violence creates terror more effective than bombs. It spreads faster than propaganda. It breaks resistance more thoroughly than any siege. The reason women were publicly violated and executed during wars wasn't about sex or hatred or soldiers losing humanity. It was about winning. Military strategists recognize that you defeat enemies by destroying their will, by erasing their identity, by making their future impossible. As long as we call this collateral damage or isolated war crimes, we lie to ourselves, to history, to the survivors. It's a military strategy refined over millennia, deployed by every major army, still used in conflicts happening right now. Should systematic sexual violence be prosecuted with the same severity as using chemical weapons? Should commanders face the same consequences for ordering these attacks as they would for ordering a gas attack? Drop your answer in the comments below, and let me know what part of this history affected you most.